Look at these views. 1.9 thousand views. That was only 6 days ago as well. Yeah. 2.2 thousand views a week ago. 1.3 thousand views. 2,000 views. What? She's got 200,000 subscribers. 224,000 subscribers. Look, the last one that she got was... Oh, go on, let's... For old time's sake, Anita, don't say I'm not good to you.
What do privilege and climate change have in common? Well, they both exist, even if you think they don't.
So, I don't really have a position on climate change. I mean, climate obviously changes. I don't know why it happens. I'm not a geologist or... No, not a geologist. I don't even know what the term is. It's a subject that I've spent no time studying since I was doing GCSE geography. So I don't know why this is happening. And I could believe it's down to... I'm sure that humans do have an impact on the environment, but the thing's very big and there's a lot. And I see things from both sides floating around, and I'm just like, I don't know what's true here, and I'm not a scientist, so I can't validate it. So I stay out of it. But it's good to see that Anita's chosen her side. I'm sure she's got much scientific learning under her belt, and she's read all of the studies, and she knows what she's talking about. Go on, Anita. I love how she just jumps over the legitimate objections and just gets straight to... Oh, she looks really concerned.
Privilege. As far as some people are concerned, privilege should be lumped with Bigfoot and UFOs as something a few folks are convinced exist, but can't show any compelling evidence to prove it.
Okay, so that's a good point. I am convinced that Bigfoot exists. Although when I was in Portland, I thought I might be able to see one. Like I follow a lot of Bigfoot channels. It's like, for me, it's like science fiction. You know, it's literally like watching X-Files, actually. Because these people come out with ridiculous shit, and it's just like, there's no evidence. Surely there'd be like 9 foot tall monkeys wandering around the forest. You'd find a body. Eventually you'd find a fucking body. Bones, for Christ's sake. You'd have some evidence. But privilege is very much like that. Like, it's basically unfalsifiable and unprovable. But sorry, go on.
Well, I'm here to tell you that it's very real. Contrary to what right-wing pundits and radical white supremacists would have you believe, pretending privilege...
Yeah, they're the only people who have ever questioned privilege theory. The only fucking people. White supremacists and Alex Jones.
Doesn't exist doesn't make it disappear. It's not Tinkerbell, folks. So what is privilege? In simple terms, privilege theory argues that each individual is embedded in a matrix of categories and contexts, and will be in some way...
Anita, do you mind if I try something here?
Holy shit. Okay. Each individual is embedded in a matrix of categories and contexts. Obviously. This is obviously the case, and it's so unfathomably far-reaching that instead of judging each person by various categories and assuming that they are the sum total of a person's characteristics and the way that the world interacts with these characteristics, maybe we should treat people like individuals. And you really got to go back to I can't remember who it was, but I don't think it was... Jordan Peterson said it, but I don't think it was originating with him. Would you rather be an immigrant or would you rather be ugly? Because I'm sure that you're suddenly happy you're not white, Anita.
Anita, do you mind if I try something here?
Sure.
See? Who's got more privilege? You, as a non-white woman...
Sure.
Great.
Or that?
Okay, so to help illustrate the concept of privilege, let's imagine we're creating a character in a video game. Now, ours is an open-world game that's designed to be very realistic and models real-life situations and challenges, school, work, relationships, and so on. It's a meticulously crafted, expansive recreation of...
No.
Yeah, no, she's not into that sort of thing. She's into kids games.
Oh, we don't have a budget for that.
Right. Okay, well, hey, just play along. In order to accurately simulate real life, the programmers have made it so that the world of the game will treat you very differently, depending on the choices you make when creating your character.
But it's not the same for everyone, is it? If that were the case, how did a non-white man become the President of the United States? Just curious, Anita.
Starting with the first choice the game gives you. If you want the easier option, you put the gender setting on male.
Okay. All right. Whew. That's a good start. And there are just so many angles of attack on this stupid fucking thing. Okay, the easier option of being the person who fails in school, because there are no affirmative action programs for you. You being the minority in universities, you'll have literally an activist not even an organization, an activist movement that's infested every fucking business in the West with their diversity quotas and HR their feminist controlled HR departments, to the point where diversity is an industry and it's specifically set against anyone who is male, because you're not diverse at all, apparently. And then we haven't even got to the white part, or the straight part. But you'll definitely feel the effects of this, because you will be the majority of suicides. You'll die sooner than women. You're the only people who can be conscripted for wars. You're going to be the majority of people who get killed in action, killed in the workplace. You'll be doing the worst jobs. And when you get paid fairly for these shitty circumstances you find yourselves in, you get a bunch of whining privileged women who have never done a day's work in their fucking life, who will say, why aren't I being paid that amount of money?
Set it to female, and you have to contend with sexism in the game's world.
People will fucking throw money at you just for being a chick. You don't even have to finish a video series.
Set it to non-binary, and you'll face misunderstandings, social exclusion, and the constant challenge of living in a world that isn't designed to accommodate you.
Not misunderstandings, not exclusion. I mean, I went into a female gym the other day saying, hey, I'm all about inclusion. Mind if I work out here? And they were like, get out, unless you identify as a woman or non-binary, in which case you can stay. I was like, wow, that's really inclusive. I'm so glad that I'm a male.
Game characters who have the setting on male have the privilege of not having to deal with any of that.
Whoa, not having to deal with sexism would be awesome.
Oh, don't I fucking know it, Anita? Don't I fucking know it? But because I'm a man and you're a woman, everything I say to you is construed as being misogynist. Even if I'm directly addressing the points that you're making on their own merits, I'm still a woman hater, apparently. But that's only because I'm a man. If a woman was saying these things, they wouldn't be calling me a misogynist. But sure, I mean, it must be nice not to have to deal with sexism.
Right? You want to try?
Yeah. Okay, so it looks like race is up next. Obviously, white is going to be the easiest option.
Obviously. Fucking... Listen, idiots, right? Everything about privilege is entirely contextual. And it can't not be contextual. If there was only one race on Earth, then this wouldn't be a thing. It's like... If there were sub-races of humans, you'd be talking about subhuman privilege, or, primary privilege, whatever you would call it. Fuck it, go on. If I walk into the wrong neighborhood as a white person, I might get in trouble because I'm not privileged in that context. Because context is everything.
Option here, right?
Yep. Choose anything else on the spectrum, and you're going to be subject to some form of racism, which could manifest in countless ways.
Way to tell black people that they are inherently disadvantaged because they're black. Good job. That's not going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy or anything. And that doesn't sound super racist as well. Just so you know.
Good luck graduating from a decent school.
Good luck graduating from a decent school, you darky. Black people don't graduate from decent schools. They're black.
Finding a decent job or...
You'll never become president. Oh, wait.
qualifying for a lone hypothetical player character, you can get there, but it's almost always going to be harder. And as a bonus, people will assume you got there through some sort of affirmative action game hack.
It's only because you guys are constantly pushing affirmative action, which actually does call into question the legitimacy of any black person's accomplishments, which is honestly one of the reasons I am against affirmative action. Because you are actually calling into question the hard work of people who actually earned what they have by giving the same things to people who didn't fucking earn it. God.
Oh, and any random interaction with law enforcement might result in your death.
Yeah, but that happens to white people too. In fact, there was a study that showed that law enforcement are more likely to shoot white people. Do they think that white people don't get killed by cops? Did they not see the video? What was the video of the cop where there was some kid? The cop was just like, the cop sounded fucking terrified. And the kid sounded fucking terrified. And he was telling the kid to do stuff. And it was the most harrowing fucking thing. And they just started shooting the kid. It was like, holy shit, dude. You know, that there was no white privilege involved there, was there?
There's no such thing as a perfect run for you. Those who play as white characters enjoy the privilege of not having to worry about that.
Just say that you're better than the darkies. Just say it. Just fucking say it, because that's what you think. That's literally your opinion. We white people are better than black people in every conceivable way, and we feel bad about that. I don't think I'm better than black people. I really think that I think there are some serious cultural signifiers that happen that have an effect in these interactions as well. I mean, like, the idea that you can just boil this down to being black or white is ridiculous.
They sure do. Oh, are you making a character for Real Life Simulator 2K18?
Yeah, we sure are. And the next option is whether our character is cis or trans.
Surprise! Cis is way easier. Some of the scenarios the developers have created...
To be fair, that's probably true. Probably is easier to be cisgendered than transgendered.
For those playing as trans characters are a real nightmare. And not like in some Dark Souls, oh, what a satisfying challenge kind of way.
Oh, well, now I'm thinking it's time to... You need to sort of up your game. Be more competitive. You know, look at it as a challenge. See, I mean, like, if you're a white man, you're thinking my life is just too easy. Not that you are thinking that. It's because you do have institutional barriers against you. And you will be institutionally punished if you marry the wrong person, have kids with the wrong person. And you may well end up killing yourself because of it. But also you've got the higher chance of dying of various diseases. But forget all that, right? You need to transition. Because then that's a real challenge.
I'm talking stuff nobody wants or should have to deal with.
Wow, so there...
Should? As a value judgment. Who should have to deal with what? Why should anyone have to deal with Anise Sarkeesian and her cabal of friends? Why should anyone have to deal with any of this?
There's also an option to select what class you're born into. I want to see what it's like to be in the 1%.
That's called playing on easy mode.
Well, it is. Kind of. Although they tend to turn out really stunted emotionally. They seem to have genuine problems. But I tell you what, Anita, you're definitely not a child of a working class family, are you? I mean, there was a video of her, like, doing a cookery thing in a house, a parent's house or something years ago. And it was this enormous fucking house. And all I'm thinking about is the house in Yeovil where my dad grew up. And it was a tiny cardboard box, basically. It's just... Anyway. If we want to talk about class, Anita, that's kind of my specialist subject by virtue of being working class British. At least in background.
Sip champagne on your yacht, secure in the knowledge that many people will assume you're somehow smarter, more attractive, or more worthy of the protection of the law simply because you're rich.
Bill Gates didn't start in the 1%, you stupid shits. Like, Bill Gates got there because of his own ingenuity as a businessman. People think that Bill Gates is a programmer or something. He's not. He was a businessman, and he did do some programming, but he basically bought DOS, packaged it with IBM in a business deal, and then made huge amounts of money that way, and then ended up he appropriated Windows from somewhere as well. I can't remember where it is. But I love the Bill Gates in the making bonus. Bill Gates didn't start in the 1%. Jesus fucking Christ.
Hell, you don't even have to be a member of the 1% to experience an easier time in the game. How about just being comfortably middle class and never having to choose between buying groceries or having the bus fare to get to work? That's a side quest no one wins. Basically, if your player character is poor or working class, you're going to spend a huge chunk of your electronic life facing a never-ending stream of soul-sucking challenges.
What I love about this is they've represented that as a white man. Isn't that interesting? Their vision of a working class person is a white male. Probably because they're the ones doing all the actual working class jobs, like collecting your rubbish, cleaning the sewers, doing the gross things that you personally don't want to do because you're busy with your latest activist project.
And that's incomprehensible to people who have money.
And it looks like that's just scratching the surface. There are so many other options here that can have a tremendous impact on your experience. Where you land on the sexuality spectrum, whether you're able-bodied or disabled. The list really goes on.
Yeah, and for each individual setting, there's one option that matches what society considers normal, and therefore gives you the privilege of not facing any oppression or social injustice as a result. And then there are options that bring with them a host of obstacles and oppressions.
Why aren't we considering things like attractiveness and how charismatic or well-read one is? Why are these privileges not interesting to social justice warriors? It's weird. It's very specific. When they want to make it all-inclusive of everything. And the thing is, it really is like an attempt to categorize people down to the very finest sort of granulation of what that person is. It's like, okay, why don't we just start there and suggest that we don't actually control people and just treat people as individuals? You know? Just saying. Hate the 1% bullshit. 25k a year puts you in the 1%. Well, they're not talking about the global 1%. They're talking about the 1% of the United States, which I don't know, you've got in like probably something like 500,000 or something.
Come on. We all know this whole concept of normal is ludicrous. There's no normal setting on human beings. And able-bodied...
Do you not know what normal is? Normal is just what the majority is. The average, the thing that there is around most. And in Western societies, it actually is, normal is white people. Normal is middle-class white people are the norm in Western societies. There's a minority of ultra-rich people, a minority of poor people, and even then, working-class people are a minority in our countries, at least in Europe. I don't know what it's like here, actually. But in Europe, most people are white and middle-class. So that is normal in Europe. Contextually, obviously. Not normal in Africa, as you might expect, but there genuinely is a normal, depending on where you are.
Cisgender, straight white man is no more normal than a queer trans Japanese guy.
Really? Really? Is that normal, even in Japan? Are they most Japanese queer and trans?
Or a disabled Nigerian woman or anyone else.
Which is obviously totally normal.
Right. It's nonsense like heteronormativity and cisnormativity that helps perpetuate the oppression of queer and trans folks.
You haven't demonstrated any oppression yet, Anita. Oppression is cruel and unjust treatment over a prolonged period of time. You haven't suggested that this is what is actually happening is actually unjust to them. Is it unjust that someone doesn't like you? Is it unjust that someone discriminates against you in a personal capacity? They can't do it in a professional capacity. We have actually outlawed that. So there can't be that. Well, I mean, it could be that, but then if it is that, you've got legal redress. You can actually sue them. You can actually have that problem solved. But you're talking about everyday society, people's individual interactions with you. I mean, you don't get to control that. And have you noticed how these people treat, like, cis white people? It's like, you're all in favour of reversing this oppression. But anyway, I don't agree they're being oppressed. Carry on, Anita.
You see, our culture treats heterosexuality as the normal set.
98% of people are heterosexual. Why is society considering this to be normal?
And views other sexualities as deviations from that.
How else could you describe it? I mean,
Similarly, under cisnormativity, so being cisgendered, which means having a gender identity that meshes with the gender you were assigned at birth.
all right, so now we're more than 99% of the population of the globe. Carry on.
That's viewed as the standard setting, and trans people are seen as other.
That's only because almost every human who has ever lived has been cisnormative by your standards. That's the only reason we consider it normal.
And of course, white and male are wrongly viewed as the default settings on race and gender.
I know the reason for this. It's because white males have this horrible tendency to be industrious. And they make things. They can't stop themselves from making things. Like these amazing world we live in fact, in our Western countries. Most of the things that you see around you that have been constructed were constructed by straight white men. Like bastards that they are. And when they create things, they just, I guess, it's a normal thing to do. A regular, average person, whoever is making something, probably just makes something that is a representation of them. If they're going to create a video game or something like that. I mean, I imagine if a black guy made a video game, he'd probably have a black protagonist. And that's not even, like, a problem. It's normal. You'd expect people to just, whatever they see around them, and often they see themselves. And that's okay. I mean, they made it after all. But I mean, I guess that's wrong if someone else is making something and you don't like it.
People who fall within the normative groups in our culture have the privilege of, well, being seen as normal in that way.
Right. Is that a privilege? Or is that just being like other things? And if you go out of your way to, and let's be honest, a lot of you do, they call them trans trenders, don't they? People who deliberately want to be not normal as a way of saying, hey, I'm a rebel. I'm not really like the rest of them. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't trans, but I definitely dyed my hair green when I was a teenager. I wasn't normal either. Fight the power. Did I lose my normal hair, brown hair privilege? Everyone had brown hair around me and I dyed mine green. My goodness, I'd lost all this privilege.
And not having to deal with...
People did look at me strangely. You know, I got comments. It was almost like I was trying to get attention through it. But, you know, I was 14 or something. So...
all the discrimination that can occur when you're seen as something else.
Now, a lot of people like to respond to these arguments
should we just imagine you all as straight white men? Would that make you feel better?
by saying things like, hey, I'm an able-bodied cisgender straight white guy, and I haven't had it easy. And you know what, Kevin? Tremendous obstacles and hardships can occur in anyone's life.
Then fuck privilege theory. If it doesn't actually account for whether someone's had a difficult life or not, what fucking use is it? Fucking come on.
But there's a clear and important distinction. Any
Steve Connor, what the fuck is that white thing? I wouldn't even know how to categorize it.
hardships an able-bodied, cisgender, straight white man faces in our culture aren't specifically a result of them being able-bodied, cisgender, straight white, or male.
Bullshit. Fucking bullshit. Literally, the BBC literally have positions available for people who are not white. Like, there are literally people, affirmative action across the fucking Western world for women getting into universities that are not available because people are men. To men because they're men. Like, the idea that the Western world doesn't discriminate against white men is just fucking lunacy. The first fucking thing they asked Jordan Peterson, does it bother you that most of your audience are white men? Do you not think that's somehow delegitimizing? Why would it be? He's got no answer to that because it's like, okay, what can I do about the people who listen to me? I mean, holy shit. What kind of privileged bubble do you have to live in to think that you literally have no advantages in societies?
Those are all privileged groups who don't have to deal with the discrimination that members of other groups have to deal with.
No, they have to deal with different discrimination. They have to deal with different discrimination against the fact they're white, male, and straight and able-bodied.
This is about systemic issues that affect people because of the disadvantaged populations that they belong to.
Well, I think that, thanks for coming on there, air conditioning, I think that straight white men need to start forming their own oppressed group. You can definitely do this in universities. In fact, this is happening in Yale right now, where I'm spoiling things from my talk tomorrow, but there are groups of white males in Yale who are declaring Yale to be an anti-male space. And they have their reasons.
And remember, just because you experience privilege in one area of your life doesn't mean that you do in others. You might be a straight white man, but remember the class setting? Surprise! If you're poor, some of the advantages you thought you had are no longer available to you.
We used the example
Holy shit. God bless the Kyriarchy.
of a game to explore issues of privilege. But of course, none of us create our characters before playing real life. None of us opt into any of these forms of social injustice. And none of us earn the advantages that come with whatever forms of privilege we possess. It can sometimes be difficult to see our own privilege, because often that privilege is simply that we benefit from not having to face the oppressions that other folks do.
Again, you haven't described any actual oppression, but what I love about this is it completely removes the agency involved in all of this. They don't think that you actually work for anything that you have. And I can only think that that comes from people who didn't work really for what they have, who kind of luck into it, maybe because they're trans, or female, or black. And there's a whole infrastructure of an entire movement that wants to give them free things so that without putting in the real work, just because of these categories, in a way to address historic wrongs.
Which puts us at an advantage. In
That's interesting. Good timing.
White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, scholar and anti-racism activist Peggy McIntosh.
That's a really generous way of putting bullshit artist. Peggy McIntosh's White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack is something you can just Google. It's on the internet. And it's just weasel words. I can usually arrange to be in a space where it's mostly people of the same race as me. Who the fuck can't do that? I mean, you could just go to your own family most of the time. Go home, and you're probably going to be in a room full of people who are mostly the same race as you. Pretty groundbreaking stuff. I can see why Peggy McIntosh is considered to be the earth thinker when it comes to white privilege. And you know, I actually haven't done a video on Peggy McIntosh, or at least I don't think so. I should probably do that.
Identified 26 ways that she benefits from white
Woo!
privilege, including, I can be sure that if I need legal or medical help, my race will not work against me.
How? How can you be fucking sure of that? Like, how do you know that the cop or the lawyer isn't black and doesn't hate white people? Oh, black people aren't cops and lawyers because they're white people jobs. I see. Sorry, do carry on. I'm the bigot here, not you.
If a traffic cop pulls me over, I can be sure I haven't been singled out because of my race.
Because no cops are black. Not one. The darn Negroes can't get a job as a cop. The white supremacy just won't let them. Duh. Fucking. And how do you know that the cop isn't a progressive? And isn't like, oh, okay, I saw that white person. Yeah, I'm going to get that white person. There's probably a historic karmic balance that I'm redressing if I do that. I mean, this whole thing is just such shit. And complete weasel. I mean, this isn't actually weasel words. These are categoric statements that are demonstrably nonsense. But anyway.
And when I am told about my national heritage or about civilization, I am shown that people of my color made it what it is.
Okay. Black people built the White House. There's a lot of literature, and you can see it in museums, and things like this, where it's literally, showing black people building the civilization, about their national heritage. But I mean, I guess if you care about people, that would probably hold true in Europe and almost every other country in the world, I suppose. So yeah, I mean, in Europe, mostly it's white people doing things. Evil white people.
Now, maybe you're a white person who thinks, but I'm one of the nice ones.
Nah, I'm an asshole. I don't care about your feelings at all.
I individually don't do anything to actively contribute to the oppression of people of color.
Well, let me tell you how that's not fucking good enough, sunshine.
And maybe you don't.
Oh, maybe. Just maybe. But you probably do.
But it doesn't change the fact that you benefit from being white, and other folks are disadvantaged because they're not.
Until you're in a race riot and they're screaming, he's white, beat his ass, and then you don't benefit from being white. Then being white really fucking sucks. But basically, don't go near the darkies, because otherwise you might find yourself with a disadvantage instead of having a privilege. And if you don't have a privilege and you have a disadvantage, then that turns our entire philosophy on its fucking head, and we don't know what to do. So basically, just stay in your lane, white boy.
No one is asking you to apologize to them directly because your ancestors owned slaves.
Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. You're white, your ancestors owned slaves. I don't even need to know anything about your lineage. I don't care how Irish you are, how Russian you were, you know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether your family came from Eastern Europe and spent 400 years being oppressed and slaughtered and enslaved by Muslims. No, no, no. We've decided white people equals slave owners. Fucking hell.
We are asking you to recognize...
I mean, honestly, the number of white people... It's something like 3% of white people in colonial America own slaves. It's such a fucking unfathomably tiny number. But sorry, go on. You were tarring the entire white race, the race that ended slavery for the first time ever throughout history, by the way. The race that ended slavery with the sole proprietor of slaves throughout human history. Go on.
That the systems put in place by your forefathers still disproportionately benefit you.
Well, I'm looking forward to feeling some of those benefits.
So here's your straw man back.
No, you can keep it. You're very good with straw men. Black people can't be cops. White people are slave owners. Women are completely oppressed. Which in the West is really not my opinion. You seem to have completely misconstrued everyone's arguments.
A lot of us are resistant to recognizing our privilege. We might feel like we're being made to feel guilty because we belong to a privileged group.
Well, it's only because you really seem to be trying to make everyone feel guilty about what you perceive to be privilege. But, there's nothing wrong with taking someone's innate characteristics and telling them that they need to do as you say because they were born a certain way. That didn't lead to problems in the past, did it?
But saying stuff like, well, excuse me for being white, is really not a good look.
No, I'm not going to apologize for being white. I went to a Greek restaurant today. It was really nice. I wanted to sample some of the ethnic non-white foods. No, I really do like Greek food, though. It's amazing.
These conversations are not about guilt, and feeling defensive about it doesn't help anyone.
No, they're about shame, aren't they? They're about shaming people into doing what you want. Guilt would be a lot easier to deal with, because you don't need to do something to someone else to make them feel guilty. That's something they feel themselves. Shame is something you have to inflict on other people. Which is your entire career. Trying to shame white people and men into doing what you want them to do. Because you are a zealot. You see the world through a pair of lenses you've welded onto your eyes and can't take off. Bad luck.
This is about taking responsibility and doing our part to recognize and
Taking responsibility for what? The way I was born? You lunatic.
dismantle these unjust systems.
The truth is that most of us exist with some combination of unearned advantage and unearned disadvantage.
Then I'm not going to worry about it. It's like, I'm just going to treat people as individuals, and I'm going to judge them by the content of their character. If that's okay with you guys, if that's all right, I'm not just going to make arbitrary judgments about people that I don't know. I'm going to judge them on what I know of them. If that's okay. I mean, I realize that it utterly demolishes your intricate privilege theories, because if everyone went around judging each other by what they actually know of each other, and it can be signaled, these things can be signaled. If you wander around, acting like a chav or something, then, I think you're deliberately signaling your intentions there. But if you're not doing anything particularly outlandish, then I'm not going to treat you as if you're particularly outlandish. How's that? I mean, I don't need intersectionalism, obviously. That would mean no one would, which would ruin your already dead careers. So, I mean, I realise you're probably not in favour of that, but is that cool? Are we buds? Bro fist?
And we can only begin to address that once we acknowledge that these systems exist and that we probably have some privilege within them ourselves.
Nah. I don't actually have to. I'm not compelled in any way to do this. Actually, sometimes you are compelled to do this. That's only because the SJW has been taking over. But I don't see any reason why I need to do that. If I'm just going to treat people decently, in general, then why would I need to do any of this? To make you feel better? Can't say I know you. Can't say I give a damn about your feelings.
Hope you found this video helpful. We'd love it if you share this episode with your friends and family.
Oh, I shared it with quite a few people, actually. So, yeah, I did enjoy this episode. I got some good yucks out of it. It was okay. I could do with less of the other people in it, though. They're not really very charismatic speakers. I know that that's a privilege and oppression that they suffer from, in your view. You were a better speaker than they are, Anita. So, but I'm almost suspicious of the diversity credentials of your friends. You've got a trans person and a woman of colour who just happen to be your buddies and you do podcasts and videos with. What a coincidence.
Join us in our next episode when we kick things up a notch by bringing intersectionality into the mix.
Oh man, I was hoping you were going to make a video about Notch. Because that would be great. I would love to see a feminist frequency video about the creator of Minecraft and his opinions on you. Oh, that was fun. That was like a blast from the past.